How's it, everyone? So today I'm going to talk about how to build a custom automated call center analytics solution on AWS. Keywords here are custom and automated, which differentiates it to what you might find on the market out there. And I'm going to explain exactly how you can build a platform like this and why you should care about this. To start off with a problem statement, good and strong. When you look at the QA use case, right now, the regulatory requirement is that 5% of all calls should go through QA processes. 5% might not sound like a lot, but if you get vast call volumes through your call center, 5% can be a completely infeasible amount of calls to try and process. Just as an example, a typical large FSI organization might make and receive about 10 million calls per year. With the 5% requirement, that means that for 1 day of call footage, QA risk officers need to listen to 683 hours of calls. That's completely infeasible, and no one has the budget to pay humans to do this. So if you want to be compliant, you kind of have to go for the automated, scalable option. Just to put that number in perspective, that's about 85 days of listening time for 1 day worth of call footage. Completely infeasible. No one has the budget to do this. And we were faced with exactly this challenge from one of our clients. And who exactly are we that we are not faced by such a difficult problem? Well, we are Synthesis. We are a group of eccentric nerds who are very excited by difficult problems. This is what we do every day. This is why we wake up. And we've been doing this successfully quite a long time. We have a huge bunch of competencies, as you can see on the screen right here. But I want to use my time wisely and get to the actual problem here. Here's a couple of case studies where we've implemented similar solutions at a couple of our clients. We have a strong competency in all things data, cloud, digital transformation, and AI. Now, the actual solution. The interactions coming through a call center occur anyway. Whether you use that data or not, it's going to happen. Now, taking that into account, I think it's time that organizations start making the move to start capturing this data and doing smart stuff with it. Rather than trying to play catch up and trying to be compliant, start basing your marketing campaigns on the data, the opinions that come through your call center. Use that data because it's sitting in your lap whether you use it or not. And the tangible outcome of this, at least for the QA use case, is to get rid of non-compliance fees and the legal risk associated with not being compliant, not delivering the service that your organization might be promising to your clients. And the specific technology that enables this are the recent breakthroughs in automatic speech recognition and natural language understanding. Everyone's jumped onto the Gen AI hype train, but generating text is not the only thing that these large language models can do. They're also really good at taking language, understanding that, and producing meaningful numbers, where we can do fancy math with it, where the use case might not be suited for Gen AI. There is a place for Gen AI in this solution, which I'll get to in a bit. And once you've implemented something like QA, that opens a whole lot of other doors where you can start driving retention and marketing campaigns. Why is this important? Customer acquisition might be driven by marketing campaigns, but customer retention is driven by what happens in the contact center, where actual service delivery is guaranteed. That's where customer retention is ensured, and that's where you can exercise control over your customer base. The way in which we do this is slightly different to what you might find out there. We don't start with technology. Our approach starts with understanding the people, then understanding the processes, how information flow through your organization. And then only lastly, we get to the technology. Once we've understood who are the stakeholders in this environment, how does information flow through the organization, then only can we build the technology that adheres and augments and not disrupt those processes and those people. If you keep an eye out on the architecture that I'll show in a bit, you will recognize that this architecture can be used for a lot more than just quality assurance. But there's a reason why I bring up the QA use case as the foundational use case. And it's because the data worlds that you need to bring together to enable quality assurance. You need data on the customer, the agent, and the interaction. Once you've laid that foundation to build those data pipelines, a whole lot of other very, very valuable things start becoming possible. But let's start with the QA use case to make it more concrete. To build this in AWS, these are the tools that you need in an architecture that I will show you right now. But first, let's have a look at a high level, what is happening. So there's some data source. This would be your CRM platform and your telephony system. This could be Connect, this could be Avaya, this could be Genesis. Wherever the calls are coming through, at a minimum, we require a call recording. Ideally, we'll have a call recording linked to CRM data, linked to your core data platforms, so that we have both content and context on that interaction. That then flows into a transcription engine where the audio is converted to text. Now, we've partnered up with some very smart people so that we are capable of transcribing not only English, but at the moment Zulu and Xhosa as well, but with a feedback mechanism so that that could be expanded into whatever language is required, because our partners come with a team of linguists that are ready to label this data so that the transcription engine improves over time. That transcribed audio, which now is text form, is still fed into the actual language model. This is a very significant component of the architecture, because if you have built this out, we've built this out for you for a quality assurance use case. To use the same architecture for the new use case is as simple as swapping out the specific language model that's used in that circle. So you reuse the rest of the architecture. You just use a different language model, which makes this super cheap and super easy to scale to new use cases because you reuse all these other components. The output of the language model is then fed to an analytics dashboard. This could be, again, whatever your company is used to. It might be Power BI, it might be QuickSight, it might be Looker, or it might be some bespoke web app. However it is you prefer to ingest these insights, that's how you will receive them. At the bottom, we have the human-in-the-loop component, which is an extremely crucial component here for two reasons. Firstly, it tells you how, in an honest and objective way, how well is the language model performing. And it also ensures that that language model improves over time, because the goal of this architecture is not to disrupt or replace existing risk officers. This is supposed to augment your existing workforce. We're not saying because you now have a team of 20 that might be able to do 5% of call volumes, that you now replace those to do the same 5%. No, we're saying use that team of 20 to now process 100% of your calls, where the risk officers now don't have to do the manual work, but they act as subject matter experts to guide and own the performance of the AI. So their role is not replaced, but it does change. For the more technically oriented, this is what it looks like in actual AWS terms. It's essentially what I just showed you using actual AWS architecture. An instance of this, it could be built different. And that's exactly why we offer this not as a shrink wrap product, but as a bespoke professional services model where we make this fit into your organization to build the integrations to, again, not disrupt, but augment. Because on the left-hand side, your CRM might not be in Salesforce. Your telephony system currently might sit in Avaya or Genesis. We will build the integrations to make this architecture work for your environment. As I mentioned earlier, the inference pipeline for the more technically oriented has three components. The real important one to pay attention to here is the middle one, where the actual transformer model resides. And now the T in ChatGPT is short for transformer. We use a transformer model in this architecture, but it's not one that is expected to generate text or to explicitly tell the agent how to perform, but it's there to understand what is happening. It is not difficult to imagine then, as we accumulate this data, that a next phase in this build will have generative AI. Once we've captured this data, once the data pipelines have been built and we know what a good interaction looks like, then we can use that data to train a generative AI to have a real-time live assistant. But we need to start with the data, right? You can't have AI without the data. So what we get once we've implemented all this is where we can have input, which is an interaction, applying a business rule and the metadata from that interaction. And we get to a point where we can say, at a very fine level of granularity, I know that employee A was talking to customer B about product A, and there was some level of emotion expressed by the client or by the agent. There was some sentiment around which product was discussed. We can go quite far once we have this data. You can imagine a world where your marketing campaigns are now completely based on the opinions of your clients, where you don't need to thumbsuck a marketing campaign and hope it works in the future, because you will base it on what is happening in your contact center at that time and have a measure of certainty of how well that campaign might perform. In building some of this stuff, at least in our first try, we've learned a couple of things, and it's useful to understand for any digital transformation journey. And it is that, firstly, that process mapping, when you want a good idea of what's happening in an organization, talk to the people on the floor. If you ask a manager how information is flowing through the organization, you will get a vastly different picture than what you will get if you talk to the people actually handling the data. It will be a mistake to trust the people whose KPI is not the integrity of that data. And then the integration of your telephony system and your CRM system, it's understandably not been a priority up until now, because it's such a massive undertaking to invest and implement these systems on their own that not a lot of attention is being paid to making these systems speak to each other. But once you do that, it unlocks so many doors that is completely worthwhile thinking of your second, your third step while you're busy with your first step. Because digital transformation is not something that's going to be less of an expectation tomorrow as it is today. Think of your future as you embark on today. And then, as is the case with all AI and machine learning projects or implementations, you need data, and you need a lot of data. But it has been a problem for long enough that some smart solutions or workarounds have been thought of. And especially as I showed in the architecture previously, having a feedback mechanism to enable continuous development of your AI is crucial. And it is important to give ownership of that journey to subject matter experts, so that best practice isn't something that's guessed at, it's something that is built into the architecture. And lastly, what comes beyond building the QA use case? So QA is the first part. It's ensuring you have data integrity, that all your platforms are synchronized. But the next step, once you have the data pipelines in place, you can start looking at optimizing customer experience, where you have complete control over what is pushed out into the market, because you have a full 360 view on what is coming into your organization from the market. Cool. Thank you.